Welcome to the classroom. Today we are in Scout Valley Provincial Park, and this is a really interesting place. It is at the shoreline of an ancient glacial lake, Lake Algonquin. And it's also at the edge of the Canadian Shield to the north of me, and south of here we have sedimentary rocks. And we have a lot of glacial features because at the shoreline we would have had the glacier in the north melting and feeding glacial Lake Algonquin, which covered much of southern Ontario. When we have exposure like this in a creek bed here, that's where we can have lots of soil exposed and lots of boulders exposed that you can see behind me here, and you can get outcrop exposure. Right now I haven't seen any outcrop exposure, just boulders and soil, but we can still learn a lot about what the geology has to offer us here. Looking at a geological map, the north of here we have the Canadian Shield. That's metamorphic and igneous rocks predominantly, some intrusive rocks, and south of the Canadian Shield we have sedimentary rocks. So we're right at that edge here in Scout Valley, so we can have a whole gamut of rocks present in these boulders. So what we need to do, we're going to have to go look real closely and see what kind of boulders we have. Let's try to find an igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic boulders, and then we can look at them, and I'll walk through with you how we can identify what main rock type it is. So let's go have a look at this boulder back here more closely, and we'll try to identify it. Okay, we've got a boulder here. It's been rounded, and it looks like it's probably collapsed out of the slope here. As the creek is flowing by and eroding the soil, it's exposing more and more boulders. And we can look at boulders and determine what kind of rock they are, and that will help us identify what kind of source we're dealing with. So if we get in nice and close to this boulder, we have a look around at all the different sides. First thing I'm looking for is there a fabric present in the rock? Both our metamorphic rocks and our sedimentary rocks are going to have a fabric, and it'll be identified as a plane. It may be a little bit wavy, but you'll probably see it throughout the entire rock. And I don't really see a fabric. There might be something going this way through the rock, but it's hard to say. So I think we're probably dealing with either a very homogeneous sedimentary rock without much bedding present, or an igneous rock. Now what we're going to do next is, if we're dealing with an igneous rock, we should see well-developed crystals. And actually, in a few places, I think we got lots of little crystals well developed. Okay, maybe some pyrite. We can see some faces that sort of glint in the sun. Not sure if you can see them on the camera. And that tells me there's a little pyrite. So that tells me, well, when we have well-developed crystals and no fabric, then we're dealing with an igneous rock. So we've got an igneous boulder here, and if we were trying to look for rocks that would stand the test of time, make a good barrier stone, wouldn't break down, our limestones and our igneous rocks like granites and that, they're going to make very good barrier stone. So we're going to excavate. We want lots of big boulders to make a barrier or a retaining wall. We want to have igneous rocks that are going to not weather and break down quickly. So that's the engineering link. We've got all kinds of different rocks represented here. We've got limestones, beautiful shell fragments and fossils there. You can see the patterns. All right, those patterns are very indicative. And I've got a little shell fragment here. Those kinds of lines, they don't get randomly made by sediment. is organisms that create these fragments and these patterns. So these are well identified as fossil fragments. So this has to be limestone. All right, and there's tons of that around here. We've got this rock here. If we look at this surface, all right, we've got light and dark minerals, some glinting in the sun, all right, some micas. If we just looked at that surface, we might be saying it's an igneous rock, but if we turn it, we can see this pattern here. It's got, I'm gonna turn it on this side, you can see the layering, all right? It's all stacked up this way. And it's a foliated metamorphic rock then, because we've got well-developed crystals, we've got crystal faces that you can see in the glint in the sun, but we have a fabric. So it has to be a metamorphic rock. That heat and the pressure compressed it together and made all these foliation planes. Beautiful. Okay, took me a while, but a little elusive to find an igneous rock, but I did. I know there's igneous intrusions north of here. We've got lots of metamorphic rocks and sedimentary rocks around, so it wasn't just a matter of time that the glacier picked up and transported here some igneous rocks. So we've got this boulder, it's very nicely rounded. All right, I can see well-developed crystals. They're very fine-grained. Larger crystals crystallize over a longer period of time. Smaller crystals crystallize over a shorter period of time. But the main thing here is I don't see a fabric. All right, no matter which way I turn it, I've got a split here. No fabric, well-developed crystals, has to be igneous rock. Those igneous rocks are a little more elusive than the metamorphic rocks or the sedimentary rocks that I could find here, but were found in a glacial environment. The rock types are those that are present in the surrounding area. And just from my background looking at a geological map, which you can do too, you look at that geological map, you look at the area and the surroundings, and then you can identify what's present here. Now, what's the engineering link? Well, these cobbles, some of them are gonna hold up better than others. Limestone's pretty good if it can hold up pretty well, but if it has a lot of clay seams in that limestone, then it's going to break down faster. That igneous rock, that's going to last a long time. It's the toughest rock out here. Those metamorphic rocks, it really depends, but if you get a lot of fabric foliation planes, they can become weakness planes and they're going to break down too. So your igneous rock is your best source of a riprap material to preserve a slope, or you want to use that as your construction material. It's going to hold up the best. They're going to resist erosion and weathering the most, so they're sought after for riprap to stabilize slopes and so on. And that's the engineering link.